Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm in upstate New York, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Monday. It's Monday, right?
Yeah, it's Monday.
It is Monday. Okay. I'm back on. I'm back on. Hey, check out this beautiful thing I'm wearing. You know what this is?
No.
This is, I don't know what it is. Was it hand knitted? Was it? Danny Kozakowski sent me this incredible cow shawl.
Okay. Well, just as it's starting to get cold. That's good to have.
I know. It's incredible. Who is this woman?
Did she make it herself?
I don't know.
She did. Mara's nodding.
Mara's nodding.
You got some information on this, Mara?
I think that she made it, and I think it's hand woven.
What? Who weaves? Who weaves?
Danny Kozakowski.
Beautiful.
Weaver in the car.
Raghu, you've been asked not to eat during the show before by listeners.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
That's right. It's so good. It's one of those mini tangerines.
Okay, it'll still be good after the show.
You're not going to believe it, but I just ran out of gas. That's why I'm a little frustrated and flustered, people. I ran out of gas.
All right, Raghu, let's try to pull yourself together. We got a show to do. But, there's some grave information that we discussed a bit here for a second.
Oh, man. Are you talking about the Bangladesh temple?
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking, but I think we should bring it to the attention of our listeners because it's important.
Yeah.
These are people, for all we know, they were listening to Wisdom of the Sages themselves. These are just like sweet devotees of Krishna. Just, living, that area, Bangladesh, that is the area that our lineage really, Gaudiya, we're called Gaudiya Vaishnavas, which refers to, it's no longer like it has any official kind of borders or anything, but it was, that area that is largely Bengal, what is now West Bengal, which is part of India, and what was East Bengal, which is now called Bangladesh, is in a separate country, and parts of Orissa, which is the state just south of that. But that is, it's from that land, from that area that our lineage comes from. So many of the important figures, including Sri Chaitanya himself and so many others are from that. The Goswamis, Rupa and Sanatana, and so many of them were from that area that is now Bangladesh. So that area has, the Bhakti tradition goes back, it's very deep and very strong in that place. But, historically and politically, there was a shift, I don't know, what was it, about 60, 70 years ago?
1947, partition.
Yeah, partition. Yeah. So that became partitioned off. Bangladesh became like a,
Islamic state with Pakistan.
State.
Yeah. So Pakistan, Bangladesh, they're part of India, the big Indian subcontinent. And then during partition, I don't know what the politics behind that were, but they decided to cut it off and make Islamic state. And when that happened, it caused tragedy. So many ways.
Well, people may remember, even George Harrison did those concerts for the people of Bangladesh when there was, so many refugees, so many Hindu refugees fled what became Bangladesh at that time, which created a whole, crisis then. Now the people that have stayed behind, the quote unquote Hindus that have stayed behind, they're a minority group, and it's not uncommon that they're abused or attacked in different ways, and
Beyond unwelcome. And
beyond unwelcome.
this is what just surfaced in the last few days in Bangladesh now.
So this is just a short letter. This is coming from Anuttama Das, who's the Minister of Communications for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He's also the husband of Rukmini Devi, who we've had on the show, and the stepfather of Gauravani, who we've had on the show. So this was dated October 17th, or yesterday. And he writes, the Worldwide International Society for Krishna Consciousness, the ISKCON community, is shocked and saddened by the recent series of violent events directed toward the Hindu minority in Bangladesh, including our own ISKCON temples and members. Between October 13th and 15th, multiple temples, homes, shops, and individuals were attacked across several districts of the country. Several innocent members of the Hindu community were killed for no reason other than their religious affiliation. Temples and private properties were burned, vandalized, and destroyed. With heavy hearts, we pray for the souls of two of our own Vaishnava devotees, Pranta Chandra Das and Jatan Chandra Saha, who were murdered during these attacks. We also pray for ISKCON member Nimai Chandra Das, who remains hospitalized in a critical condition. ISKCON is grateful for the recent statements of support from the Hindu community from the Honorable Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. ISKCON calls upon the Bangladesh government to take swift action to bring an end to the violence against minorities that has undermined the peace and well-being of Bangladeshi society, and to take tangible steps to ensure the long-term safety and well-being of all Bangladeshi citizens. That includes to, 1, bring to justice the perpetrators of these recent terrible crimes. The criminals behind these murderous attacks must be held accountable and punished to the full extent of the law. And 2, to take immediate, tangible, and substantial steps to provide security to minorities in Bangladesh, including Hindus, Christians, and Buddhists. In a spirit of unity, earlier today, massive protests were organized by the Hindu Buddhist Christian Unity Council, of which ISKCON is an active member. Events were held in the cities of Dhaka, Chittagong, Shailet, and other parts of Bangladesh. Protesters demanded that the perpetrators of violence be held accountable and the safety of all Bangladeshi minorities be ensured. Similar protests are planned in the coming days across Bangladesh. In other parts of the world, too, protests are being staged in support of Bangladeshi Hindus and other minorities. So, attempts are being made. The UN is being reached out to. To be honest, I've read more horrifying descriptions of what's going on, including
I know
rape
that,
and,
yeah,
and so many.
We can't even imagine what goes on.
It's very heartbreaking. I wish I could direct you all in ways that we might be able to help. I don't know of any ways, but if people do know of ways, they can reach out to us.
You need to make it public on social media is important. I think when people, or there's awareness about stuff, it shines light on it, and then somebody somewhere has some influence to do something.
Hopefully,
yeah.
So anyway, for that reason, I wanted to, it's sad news, it's heartbreaking news, but exactly for the reason that you're saying, I just wanted to bring this out there.
I'm glad you did.
People just like ourselves, that are practicing their Krishna Bhakti, and for no other reason than that, they're being killed, raped. Their homes and temples are being destroyed, and that's
horrible.
It's really sad. So again, our heart goes out to them. Our prayers go to them, and hopefully there will be other ways that we can, in some way, assist them and help that they get the protection that they need.
It really makes me want to just reinforce how we teach that God is one.
Yeah,
we're all connected. We're not meant to see different religions as ultimately enemies or others. I really think we got to push that point when we explain things. And I mean, the Bhagavad Gita teaches it well, and then we have to make sure ourselves don't become sort of separatists as well, because this is the message that's going to really revolutionize the world. Not that we've created a religion and it's a little bit more deeper than your religion. We want to show that there is a a place the whole world can live under, a roof the whole world can live under. And I think
Yeah.
that's important. And I think the Gita is endorsing it. The Gita endorses open-gated, broad-minded concepts of spirituality. And come on.
Yeah, well, that is right. That is the difference between, one way to define it. The difference between spirituality and religion. If we're merely narrow-minded religious thinkers, then we think those that have, joined our group are okay, and those that haven't are wrong, and even should be attacked and killed. I mean, it goes that far.
It goes that far.
Whereas spiritual knowledge means, no, I recognize, right, that spark, of life that is common, in me is common in everyone else, right? And that life is always to be respected, wherever that may be. And then we can begin to see, based on that, we can begin to see the commonalities in our spiritual paths, and ideally learn to respect one another. So this is when it goes beyond that. It's not just, as you mentioned, it's not just being unwelcome. It's not just religious tension, but it's actually total brutality of the worst kind. So it's sad. Hopefully, something can be done. All right,
thank you.
Raghunath. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. How are you? Otherwise,
other than that, I'm doing fine. We have Kartik coming up. You know that, right?
Yep.
Do you know
what's the date of that? What's the date of that?
I believe it's this Wednesday it begins.
What?
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Let's put it out there to our public who do not know. There is a magical month of the year. A magical month of the month. It's of course it's to the lunar calendar, and Kartik, named after Kartikeya. But in devotee circles, we call it the month of Damodar. It's the month where we meditate on Lord Krishna being bound by love. There's a little rope that his mother ties around his belly button, and to tie him because he's being very naughty. And it's the month we meditate on Krishna in that form. For this entire month, which is not a regular solar month again, it begins, you said Wednesday, Prabhu?
Yes.
Begins Wednesday, and it goes from the full moon to the full moon, basically. Yeah. It's considered your spiritual life magnified times
1,000.
1,000. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Right, Mary? You going to chant some japa today? How many rounds are you going to chant today?
1,000.
Oh, whoa. Okay, that's a million rounds.
That's a million. All right. Multiply it by 1,000. Kathy Haggard, you chant one round? That's 1,000 rounds for you. Swamiji, 2 rounds for you today. That's 2,000 rounds. That's what we're talking about. Okay, so everything, it's like double coupons, basically.
This is basically, you've turned this into a Crazy Eddie commercial. It's insane.
Only you and me know who Crazy Eddie is. That's the funny thing. Oh, Monkey knows who
old
Crazy
New
Eddie
Yorkers. Old New Yorkers know.
But the idea is that everything is multiplied. It's triple coupon day here at during Kartik. Everything, and it's actually true. It actually is true. It actually will work. Like, it's not just like we're saying this. Whatever you do in your bhakti mystically gets multiplied by 1,000, and you'll tangibly feel it. You will tangibly feel it when that full moon comes. Whoa. And if you're in Vrindavan at that time, this is why a lot of people go to pilgrimage to holy places like Vrindavan, because Vrindavan is already 1,000. We're talking about crazy coupon
That's a million times.
It's like millions of times of whatever you're doing multiplied exponentially, compound interest.
I remember, when last time we were in Mayapur together, we had a small group there. Really, wasn't that a great time? It was a few years back. We took a group.
Mara was there, actually. Remember Mara?
Was there. I remember.
Yeah, it was great.
And I remember that there was a Kumbh Mela, and it was a Kumbh Mela day where everything was like, it was a similar idea where like any of your spiritual efforts were multiplied by I think 10,000. You remember that? And I remember that we're hanging out there with the group, and we're coming out of one temple, and on the road there was a little sugarcane juice stand. Some guy with a
sugarcane is multiplied by 1,000.
Well, no, but like all the devotees, there's like 15 devotees there, and I said, I'm going to buy them all sugarcane juice right now.
Oh, yes, that's right.
It's like I've bought sugarcane juice for 150,000 Vaishnavas.
That's the benefit. That's what's going
on. Others were trying to chip in, and I was like, nope. And then
I remember that.
Be greedy like that. Yeah, you gotta.
Greedy to serve this month. Yeah. If you can render service, offer love, read a little bit extra, maybe we'll do some extra sweet baby Krishnas. I've got to get back on the sweet baby Krishna train.
Well, that's what I was going to just suggest. That I mean, this is the ideal time for sweet baby Krishna. Really, really, what it's about. It's about increasing one's meditation, specifically on the pastimes of Krishna, right? Like bringing our mind there, because that's where our mind is. In the practice of bhakti, that's where the mind's meant to go. But there's so much to kind of prevent it. You gotta set aside certain hours in the day, right? And certain days of the month, and certain months of the year. And this is that month of the year where you really do extra, and the benefit there is extra. But there's the song that we sing, the Damodarastika. One simple thing, the most basic simple thing that in other words, if anyone out there saying, well, what should I do?
Yeah.
I would say the most basic thing is to get a hold of this song, the Damodarastika, right, which is 8 beautiful verses. Damodarastika.
Astakam, putting it on the board.
And
find it on Spotify.
Yeah, and you can sing that, and it's got a very beautiful melody. Maybe we could bring someone on to sing that song on the first day. Maybe get Genevieve over here. What do you think about trying to do something like that?
That's a good idea.
Nice? And you can sing that song and read the translation. There's deep meaning in those verses. And then what we also do is you offer a lamp, which can just be as simple as a candle. If you know how to make ghee wicks and have a little ghee lamp, that's great. Otherwise, you can just get some birthday candles, right? Get a box of birthday candles. And every day you offer a candle, you offer a lamp to...
Kaustubha freeze.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Well, his point is you offer a little candle every day. And you can even get a little picture. You can even get a little picture of Krishna, put him like Krishna getting tied up, put that on your altar as well. Anyway, I'm going to talk because Kaustubha got froze. Anyway, this stuff works. Just putting that out there. You got 1 month to just just push yourself a little extra. And the payback, the return on investment is so much greater than you can imagine. And I'm going to do it myself, Mara. I think we should click in and have a great Damodar month, the Kartik month. What else? So yeah, if you're already chanting something, then you chant a little bit more. And if you chant 16 rounds, you chant 18 rounds. If you chant 1 round, you chant 2 rounds. Something like that, where you're just like nudging yourself, giving yourself a little nudge. What else can we say about Kartik?
I don't know. I think you should offer some Sweet Baby Krishna readings so that you can tell the story.
Well, I'm feeling, I think, 92% better today.
Good.
That's a good number. That's a good number, 92. Yesterday I was only at 80%. Today I'm 92. Still taking it slow. I thought I did have something profound to say, but I just don't. But Mara did come over and read yesterday, which was really nice. Me, Mara, and Bunky and the kids all read. We had our own private Sweet Baby Krishna. I'm just wasn't ready to go public yet, but I think I'm getting ready, Mara.
Good. I know
Kaustubha.
the Patreon members would appreciate it.
Yeah. Kaustubha, are you? Oh, he's missing in action. Okay. Anyway, we're going to dive into the Srimad Bhagavatam. Why don't I just start the secretive mantras?
Can I make some announcements before that?
Sure.
There's a Bhakti Recovery Group meetings today at 1 and 9:30. And then tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. for Patreon members, Michelle Berger is offering an asana class.
Thank you, Michelle Berger. All right. Great. Here we go. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tojayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloki bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Madatam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born blind, the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge, and I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Reading from the third canto, Mara.
I'm here, Raghu. I'm back.
All right.
You know, my computer did the same thing when Jai Jagannath was here. Just freaked out.
Just freaked out.
Don't know what
Ghost in the
about.
machine.
Yeah, speak. Okay, that's what we're gonna be talking about today. Ghost in the machine. We start a new chapter, right?
Ghosts. Canto
Not
3.
about ghost. What about the soul?
What are we? 26? 26? Fundamental principles of material nature.
That's exactly right.
All right. I'm ready.
All right.
Ready to dive in?
You just chanted the verses.
Chanted all the magic incantations.
Okay, great. So yeah, let's dive right in. This is, you know, this is really good stuff that we're getting into now. This is now Kapila. You know what I think about when I think of this conversation, Raghunath? This whole chapter. And chapters coming up, because I just saw The Matrix. You know, so I'm thinking like this chapter is like Morpheus talking to Neo. Right? It's like one person that understands the world that they're in, explaining it to another person that doesn't understand it. And it's so far out. Like, in other words, it's hard to wrap, you know, for Neo, it was hard for him to wrap his mind around what he was being told, right? Like, the world that you're in right now, in one sense, is not real, right? That you are beyond this, and that there's a world beyond this, and so on. And, you know, you know, breaking down the world that he was in and trying to explain the principles and how they work in that world, and then how you transcend all of that.
Isn't that crazy? It's all unreal.
It's kind of,
it's all unreal.
It is a little crazy, you know. And that's where I see the similarities, because, you know, when you start throwing that kind of stuff at people, it's like I don't know, I mean, that's what's going on in the Matrix, right? Like, this is just too much to believe, you know. How can we believe that? But let's, you know, whatever we believe, it's really far out, and it's really wild, and it's kind of beyond us. So Neo, he got that information. How was he able to understand what reality was? He understood it by hearing from someone that was beyond it, by hearing someone that was liberated from it. And he could just simply by hearing from that person that got it, he would have never been able to get there by himself, right? That's why, you know, when we speak about truth, sometimes it's called, like, for instance, when we speak about the nature of the soul, we call it achintya beta beta tattva. It's inconceivable. Right. Not that it's entirely inconceivable, but like Neo could have never figured out the Matrix without Morpheus telling him about it. It had to come down. He would have never been able to climb up to that.
I really should just watch this movie.
I know, man.
In the daytime when I'm not going to fall asleep. I've watched it 11 times, fell asleep every time the first 15 minutes.
Okay. Well, you must know that 11 minutes really well. I guess you've been in it kind of like half awake for those 11 minutes.
No, it's just all a blur. Okay.
So it's like that. Let's try to understand that. Like, Kapila Dev he's going to break down when we talk about the fundamental principles of material nature.
Kapila Dev is Neo?
No, Kapila Dev is Morpheus.
Okay, gotcha.
And by the way, you know, when I was watching that, I was realizing, you know, like that character of Morpheus, who's that, Lawrence Fishburne that plays him, just so perfect for that role. He played that role so well. You know, like that. He was like, you know, he was, I guess you could say, he was like a, you know, he was the enlightened guy in it. And that scene where he's training Neo is so good, and it's so relevant to what we're talking about. You know, there's a scene in there. I don't know if you got there, but did you see the scene where he's training him like in martial arts?
Prabhu, I just see you giving this 2 enthusiastic thumbs up. This movie,
I give it 2 thumbs up. But there's a scene where Morpheus he's now explained to him that you're in an artificial world, and to train him to operate in that world, they create another computer program. That's their training world, right? He says, basically, you're in a computer program right now, and then he says, now fight me. You know, like now try to, try to understand that there's laws here that can be transcended, and now try to fight me. And then Morpheus, he puts up a pretty good fight.
These guys must have lived in an ashram.
There's certainly some connections, there's definitely connections. So Morpheus fights Neo, and Neo puts up a pretty good fight. Then Morpheus kind of like, at a certain point, he just kind of like throws him and he lands on the ground. And he says, "How did I beat you?" And then Neo says, "You're too fast." And then Morpheus says, "Don't believe that my being stronger or faster has anything to do with my muscles in this place." Or he asks him actually, do you believe that my being stronger or faster has anything to do with my muscles in this place? You think? And then he's kind of like, he's trying to wrap his head around it. In other words, so the muscles and the strength that you have is actually artificial. It's unreal. And he's trying to wrap his mind around it, and he says, "Do you think that's air that you're breathing right now?"
Yeah.
And then he's sitting there trying to think about that. In other words, we think we're dependent on the air of this world, but actually our soul is not at all dependent on the air of this world. It's only because we're identifying with this body is that an issue. So
all right, wait a second, but what if the Matrix is real? Like maybe it's not. Maybe it's not a fake world. Maybe this is really me. What do you think about that? What if it is? What if this is all real, Kaustubha? There's not another world. There's not a spiritual me. There's just me, this fleshy Italianish guy, me. What about that?
Well, you see, the way the Bhagavad Gita would respond to that is saying, well, just think about it. That fleshy body that you're in right now didn't exist 50 years ago. But you have memories from 50 years ago, right? The cells that are making up your body right now, they may have existed in other places. They may have been part of some other
tree.
They could have been a tree. They could have been anything. But you're still here, and you have memory of it. You have memory of those bodies. Therefore, Krishna says right in the beginning of the Gita, "Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yovanam jara." A sober person isn't bewildered by this idea. They can see, I have memories.
Ever want the illusion to be real?
Body.
Ever want the illusion? Come on, illusion. Just be real.
Well, Raghunath, that's what the whole movie is playing with, is that there's...
I guess that's what the whole material world is playing with. We want the illusion to be real. We want wealth to be wealth. We want beauty to stay eternally. We want youth to stay forever. That I guess that's what materialism is. It's the desperate search for eternality in a temporary world.
Well, that's what happens.
And it ain't happening.
Is that in order to step back in reality, you had to fight with the machines who had taken over the world. So that was like a pretty grim, kind of reality to have to deal with. So the question was, do you want that, or do you want illusion? Do you want truth, or do you want illusion? And so one of the people that had been freed from the Matrix can't handle that world anymore, and so he gets corrupted by the machines, and he turns against, he kind of gets what do you call it, like he betrays the team and turns them into the machines. And so, but anyway, it's playing with all those things. But there's again in that scene where Morpheus is training up Neo, he keeps playing with his head with these kind of things. And then Neo says, "I know what you're trying to do." And then Morpheus says, "I'm trying to free your mind, Neo, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it." And that's the fact.
Most God-conscious film of all time.
Yeah, well, it is, right? Because that's
better than Jesus Christ Superstar.
Like Srila Prabhupada said, you have to fly your own plane. In other words, all this knowledge is there. You can take it in, but in the end, each one of us has to make a decision. I want reality. Right. I want to transcend this, and I'm willing to do what it takes to get there. And so that's what the Matrix is all about too, like on a personal level, right? It's about, just like any good story is about someone
the hero's journey,
having to overcome obstacles, dealing with their own weaknesses, having to build up that courage to break free or to accomplish something. So in a sense, that what's happening here is you have Kapila Deva as a Morpheus, you have Devahuti as like a Neo, and
Right.
and Kapil Dev is going to break down the matrix for her, explain all the different elements. That's why it's called the fundamental principles of material nature. He's going to break down all the elements. When you can see the elements, when you can lay them all out on the table, then you can separate yourself from it. Realize that's not me.
That's
It's
Sankhya
in one
Yoga.
sense
That's
it's not.
Sankhya
Yeah,
Yoga.
it's not real. Yeah, it's all a computer program. And as we go through this chapter, we can go deeper into this. Bhagavad Gita goes into it. Bhagavatam goes into it. If we understand it in that kind of context, I think it helps make it clear.
You know what, Kaustubh? Can I
Yeah.
share something sad?
Yeah.
I need more Morpheus in my life. I
You
need
need-
more. Well, when I got sick, when I was really out of it, I really thought I'd be a little bit more God conscious, and I just was lamenting and sad, and hopeless. If people were saying, "Hey, think positive thoughts, be grateful. What are you grateful for?" It was difficult for me. I've been programmed to be my mind and my body and my senses, and I was really hoping to be a little bit more God conscious.
Well, but even that's great, right? In other words, like you're not alone in that. I think until we're liberated, we're somewhere in between. Like as we've received this information, from that point until we're liberated, it's kind of like a deepening of the faith. A deepening of the realization of the truth. So even though you were, let's say, feeling emotions, what did you say that you're?
I was
feeling
emotional. I was
hopeless
felt hopeless. I felt like, okay, this is it. I'm losing my children. I'm gonna lose. Just like in a downward spiral of, like, I'm never getting out of here.
I get it. So you're feeling those darker emotions of hopelessness, but even when you were, there was part of you that was observing that rather than just experiencing that. True?
Yeah, that's true.
So in that sense, even that is such freedom, right? Even that, to be able to say, I'm watching myself experience these emotions which are temporary, which are the movements of the matrix, which are the movements of the material energy. Even though I'm feeling it and it's hard to feel it, I'm watching myself feel it, and therefore I know that I'm beyond it. Even that's like a great relief. But what you're saying is true. We need to deepen it.
We need to deepen it. It's when I hear about these people are really going through more suffering than I'm going through, and they're somehow, dealing with it in such a splendid spiritual way. I'm just like, what the hell?
Inspiring.
What? It's inspiring meets depressing. Like, what the hell am I going to have to do to climb up that ladder to get there? Like, how many times I got to read this book every morning before I become God conscious?
So then when you feel that way, then you have to also reflect on that idea, right? Again, you have to zoom out that this one lifetime is so short that I can't, it's kind of like, just like they say, what is it like, if you want to turn around a ship, it's not like a quick thing, right? It takes some time for that thing to turn around.
This is a long journey. We tend to think this is, well, I've been a practicing bhakta for 30 plus years. It's like, big deal.
Nothing.
I've been a practicing illusionist. I've been practicing illusion for lifetimes.
Right,
30 years. That's like a drop in the bucket of my like romantic salsa dance with the material energy. I've been doing that one for like lifetime after lifetime.
Yeah.
What am I kidding?
So patience is necessary. It's an important part. If we're frustrated that we haven't achieved that goal over this very short amount of time, then we're going to really need to focus on the concept of patience.
I think it's when you see these people who are like sort of out of the blue, and they're sort of new to bhakti, but they are evolved because they're actually not new to bhakti. They have been around for like a long time. True. That's the thing. We just see it in this lifetime, like, okay, this guy got into bhakti. I helped this person get into bhakti, but they're actually very evolved because they've been doing this stuff for lifetimes. There's no apparent chronological entrance point within this lifetime, pretty much. Like life is eternal. Our journeys are eternal, and we've been practicing and failing and succeeding again and again with every like silly or wonderful choice that we make.
Karuna, she's a 7, but she's like already she just wrote and she says, I know the Dihinosmin verse, She's already loaded with all this knowledge, right?
Okay, I got news for you, Karuna. You're about to find a big arch enemy in your friend Mara right now because Mara is
No.
getting sick and tired of. No, I'm just joking.
She's inspiring.
She's inspiring Mara.
I'm joking.
Maybe Raghu's getting
I'm
a little
joking.
jealous.
No, but but you do look at someone like Karuna or someone born into bhakti. It's sort of like
Ty Lieberman, Gopi
It-
Lieberman,
yeah.
little people.
they grow up they grow up doing this stuff. They grow up hearing this stuff on a regular basis. You still got to fly your own plane, kid. Ultimately, we can give them as much as I'm going to just get down on you today, Karuna. Ultimately, every kid has to make those choices for themselves.
That's right.
Who they want to become, and those big, deep choices of what is my real identity, what is my offering to this world. But the birth you get for getting born into a family of people practicing bhakti or people on a spiritual path, special birth.
It's a very
Special
special
birth.
birth. Yeah.
Especially when you got like relatives that are sort of very spiritual and connected, like the Mara dynasty. Her sister listens to the show, or dad listens to the show.
You know what's a fascinating thing to me? I was just reading. I wish I remembered the reference. I was reading and it was explained so clearly. Maybe it was even on the show. I don't know. But this idea that as you start to realize this truth, as it becomes deeply realized, then it doesn't matter whether you're in the matrix or not, because your consciousness is beyond it all.
Well, that's the sadhu, like in the world, but not of the world. You're just
Yeah.
floating around,
Yeah.
not disturbed by it. You're not getting pulled. When everybody starts hating each other over some political thing, you're like, you're not bothered. When people are digging their heels with this or that, you're not bothered. You're not going there. You're staying somewhere right in the middle. It's beautiful.
You just become an instrument of compassion in that.
Yeah.
Right? You're just like, I got service to do to help. But within, one is always feeling that connection. So they're never distraught in any way.
You can't artificially practice it either. It's a path. It's a real bona fide path. I'm sure there's lots of other paths, but this path works. Like, this is a path. If you want to be that person who's like walking on that slack line between heaven and hell in the material world, this is it. This works.
Well,
You just got to apply it.
If you're doing it, it's the same path, right? But in other words, it's realizing the same stuff, the same basic things, that in one sense, this world is in my home. Now, in these books, it's going to be like broken down, technically,
Yeah.
breaking down the elements and all that. But from another tradition, it might be expressed in a simpler way, but it's more or less the same kind of thing. This is my home, that I have a divine connection with God, that I'm beyond all this. And if one gets that conviction very strong, then they transcend, and they're on the same, in a sense, they're on the same path, right?
Yeah. Lovely.
All right.
All right, man. So let's dive into this new chapter.
Text
Fundamental. I like the title. Fundamental principles of material nature. Almost sounds like we're like reading a science book.
Yeah, it's breaking it down.
Okay. Text 1. The personality of Godhead, Kapila, continued. Imagine if we had to chant Kapila, 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 Hare Kapila, Hare Kapila, Kapila, Kapila. That's his name.
can if you
Kapila
want
is his
to.
name. You can. It's a holy name.
Yeah.
Never thought about that. The personality of Godhead, Kapila, continued. My dear mother, how I shall describe unto you the different categories of the absolute truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of the modes of nature, right?
That's
We
the
are not
matrix.
released. We are gripped by these gunas. I love that concept. We're gripped. We're acting like a puppet, and we're getting controlled by the demigods, right? Who are like moving us like a puppeteer would move a puppet. And I think I'm choosing this. I think this is my free will. I'm going to do this with my independent thought. And what it really is, I'm just gripped in the same way an addict is gripped by alcohol. I think I'm going to choose to drink alcohol. No, you're not. Your senses are pulling you like a puppeteer is moving you. And then I become arrogant, like I'm choosing this. Wrong. We're slaves under these gunas.
Yeah, I love what you're getting right into all the stuff that I'm looking forward to getting into in this chapter. In other words, there are verses in the Gita that sometimes they can be confusing, right? Like sometimes it says the self does nothing at all. What do you mean? Like
I know.
I'm doing stuff, right? I'm doing stuff, and understanding the different influences that are there. There's, and this is all going to be broken down. Prakriti, all the material energy, right? Purusha, which first Purusha is mentioned here is going to be Vishnu. And then, but then there's also this other Purusha, right? Which is the soul, us. Understanding these three, understanding the distinction between each one, and understand the nature of how they interact. That is called jnana, or knowledge. And this Sankhya philosophy, which is taught here, this process of Sankhya, this is a process of jnana. It's a process of understanding all these different elements. When we take Prakriti, we're going to break Prakriti down, into many different categories. But understanding them all and understanding the influence. So when the Bhagavad Gita is going to say something like the self does nothing, one who sees that the self does nothing at all actually sees, right? What does that mean? Well, we're going to break it down here and really help understand that. And then when you get that, then what you're saying, Raghu, like in other words, you say like the alcohol thinks I choose to drink alcohol, but actually they're forced to drink alcohol, right? They're being pulled in that direction, and they've lost control. When you start to think of that kind of thing in terms of the matrix, right? Like in terms of like, okay, what's going on, right?
Like what? Yeah.
I am this observer, and due to my previous activities, I've been thrown into the matrix with a particular programming.
The program is driving me towards her and him and tall women or strong men or handsome, Latin men or different types of food or drugs of choice or, country living or city living. And it's really just like the programming of the brain. And we act as if we're choosing, but we're gripped.
We're gripped.
Now,
Srila Prabhupada writes this here in the commentary to this verse. He says, as long as one has even a slight desire to enjoy or lord it over the material nature, right? I want to enjoy the matrix, right? As long as one's thinking like that, has that desire, there's no chance of being freed from the influence of nature's material modes, right? And again, this is what the whole matrix is playing with. Like they're playing with spoons, and they're try to understand that you're separate from this, that you're beyond this, and that in a sense this is unreal. Focus on that. But we lose that clarity, even if philosophically we find this intriguing and like a possibility. Yeah. But because we desire, the things of the illusion, because we desire experiences within the matrix, we never get freed from it. Right, and that's where jnana comes in. That's where it's like, let me really understand what it is. So he writes, therefore, one has to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead analytically, as explained in the Sankhya system of philosophy by Lord Kapila Dev. So that's what's going on here.
Lovely.
All right.
Okay. Knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. I shall now explain that knowledge unto you, by which the knots like that, the knots of attachment to this material world are cut.
Literally,
we have think of a knot, like a knot in your shoe, like you tied it wrong, can't get it out, you need a fingernail, somebody help me, get a pin, right? There's a knot of attachment to matter. And we can all relate to it in some degree or other. We're attached to cars, we're attached to, what are people attached to? Mara, what are you attached to?
Sex is one thing. Food.
Sex.
Mara, okay, Mara, what are you attached to?
Sex, food, fine cooking equipment, Cuisinarts, and
the latest
various
Cuisinart
baker prides, stoves, motorcycles, whatever we're attached. We have some knot that we're attached to, and we think this thing will definitively fulfill the God-shaped hole in my heart, and it won't. And sometimes we know it. Sometimes we don't even know it. Sometimes we think, well, that won't fulfill me, but this thing will. And I don't have that yet, and I'm working towards it. But those are the knots that tie us to matter. And I think a big part of this process, knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. I'm going to explain the knowledge by which the knots of attachment to the material world are cut. There is no blender, Mara, that will fulfill the God-shaped hole in your heart.
It's true.
There's no cutting utensils, no knives, no whippers.
Whippers. Yeah, but here the word used here is hridaya granthi, which is used elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, right? Hridaya granthi, the knot in the heart.
The knot in the heart, right?
Yeah. So it's it said here, the position of rightly understanding oneself cuts the knot of material attraction. The Hridaya Grunti Behedanam. It cuts the. But when we think of knot, we can also think of like sometimes there's a hose that gets a knot in it. Are
Yeah.
you there, Raghu? Okay, you're there.
Yeah, I am. The hose gets a kink.
A kink or
Not
a
really
knot
a knot.
in
It
it.
gets a kink.
Yeah.
You don't use a
And-
lot of hoses, do you, Kaustubha?
It could be knotted. It could be knotted. And even a kink is a knot of some sort, isn't it?
I guess you could call it a kink.
And so the point is that when that hose is knotted or kinked, it prevents the flow that's meant to go through that hose, right? Something's meant to flow,
Okay.
right? And so
I like
similarly, this knot in the heart, what is our heart meant to do? The heart should just be like, flowing, with certain feelings and sentiments, happiness and divine love.
The
But
hose
that
of divine
knot-
love?
The hose of divine love.
That's like a
but-
song from Trap Down Under.
Trapped down under the hose of divine
Trap Down
love.
Under, the hose of divine love.
So that hose of divine love is knotted, right, due to our illusion and due to our desires and attachments. So here again in this verse says, knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. I shall explain that knowledge unto you. This is Morpheus, like, right? I shall explain that knowledge unto you, by which the knots of attachment to the material world are cut. Why don't we read the commentary to this?
Well, I also want to say, when you talk about knots of the heart and use that translation, then it gets even into like the concept of romance. And we've all experienced like the illusions of romance. Books have been written about it. The Shakespeare wrote about it. It's one of these things, the knot of the heart, tying us to something that sometimes we know is like, we know it's wrong. We know it's bad. We know it's even like completely, yet I'm attached. It's a knot. Yeah. So I like that analogy even more, even though the knot of the heart can also be replaced with the knot of the mind, which is sometimes interchangeable with heart. Do you want to read the purport of 3?
Yeah.
Of 2, rather?
Of 2.
Ooh, good stuff, yeah. Okay. It is said that by proper understanding of the pure self, or by self-realization, one can be freed from material attachment. Knowledge leads one to attain the ultimate perfection of life and to see oneself as they are, as he is. In the Svetasvatara Upanishad, 3.8, it also confirms this. By the way, I just love the fact that purports always refer to these ancient books. You don't have a commentator just like saying, here's what I think.
Right.
Here's what I'm thinking about.
I mean,
they're referring to a canon of literature supporting a final Vedic conclusion. That's why I like this stuff. It's a tradition, and there's no room for me and my big speculation.
I was watching recently a video of one of these particularly popular so-called holy men recently, right?
Particularly popular holy men.
I'm not going to name any names, but
I know exactly who you're talking about because he filled Giant Stadium.
Oh, I don't think so. But in any case, it was just all this person never goes back and refers to any of these texts, which the tradition is. In other words, it's like I stepped into your tradition and I'm posing myself as the enlightened one,
Drives me insane, truthfully.
And they never actually refer. In other words, they never actually refer to where this knowledge comes from. This is the difference. You want to know what the red flag is when it comes to understanding, who really understands this yoga tradition, who can present it, who can be a guru, etc.
Right.
When someone's never quoting the sources, and in a sense they're allowing themselves to become that
reservoir of all deep wisdom.
Yeah, it becomes
I was self-enlightened.
A personality cult, right? It's like
exactly.
It's all about me, right? No,
right.
It's all it's.
And you're
all
posing
about
yourself
God.
A great philosopher.
Yeah,
we're not into that either.
Yeah.
That's why I much rather hear from Eben Lewis, Charlie McKinnon, David Charles Wilson, Shanaz Ohm. I much rather hear from all these guys because they're going to stay within the confines of their own personal realization and a tradition.
Yeah.
Whereas these people who are posing themselves, and it really gets under my fingernails too, they're posing themselves as the classical Indian mendicant guru, with all the accoutrements that the guru is supposed to wear. but
The
they're not
externals,
referring.
right?
Yeah, but they're not referring to the tradition, and therefore, innocent people who don't study the Bhagavatam, who don't study the Vedas, they're just like, oh, I get. He sounds enlightened. He looks enlightened.
Everybody else seems to think he's
Everybody else seems to be there, and then you have like this cult of personality where people are like, well, you think he's enlightened, and she thinks he's enlightened. He must be enlightened, and it's a bunch of sheeple following things not based on any tradition or any authenticity of the tradition. And then what you have is you have Western philosophers who can say the most profound things or the deepest things, but it's all based on one limited person's speculation of reality. Who cares? Who cares? It's limited to what you can think up. Therefore, what we're going to teach here in the Bhagavatam, or what they're teaching in the Bhagavatam, is the same thing the traditions have been teaching for generations. And it's only by great fortune that we stumbled upon it, because we're Americans. We don't know it difference. It looks like a swami, talks like a swami, got a beard like a swami.
Must be a swami.
Must be a swami.
Not necessarily.
Right, so I'd rather hear from a new person, relatively new, who's following that tradition and trying to apply this stuff, quoting from the tradition, and then what you're getting then is you're getting the empowerment of the tradition, not based on your great intelligence, your intellect, or your insight. That will come also.
Right. We're looking for someone that is the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, right? Not like I'm a big deal. I'm just a servant, right? But speaking of someone new that's presenting the tradition, maybe to wrap it up, we could hear from Karuna, because she knows the Dehino Smin verse, right?
Okay. All right.
Karuna, you're on.
Is that what she's presenting today, Karuna?
Ready?
What you got, Karuna? Hit us.
Dehino? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're on.
Dehino smine tadehe komaran yohanam jarata todehan tara pratyodiru statra namuyati.
She's got
Very good. Bunky, you know that one? Which one? What the hell?
the one that Karuna just quoted.
All right, he's looking at the Bhakti Shastri course.
Translation, Raghu translation of that verse.
As the embodied soul continuously passes in this life. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this life, from childhood to youth to old age, the jiva, the soul, the spirit, enters a new body at the time of death. Those who are God conscious, sober, aware, are not bewildered by such a change of bodies. So in the same way we have not flinched when I change into my teenage body and my 20-year-old body, 40-year-old body, the same way we haven't really flinched. I look at the mirror, I flinch a little. But in the same way, we're just going to enter a new body at the time of death. And if you're actually God conscious or sober, no big deal. Good job, Karuna. That's a big one. 213.
You're so funny.
Hey, if you don't know that verse, that's 213, and you're thinking, you know what? I should learn a shloka. That's your shloka.
I know 212, 213, and 220.
All right, that's good. Second chapter is good.
From the second chapter. Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna throw that as a challenge horse out there.
Challenge horse.
Kartik.
Okay.
Kartik, I want everybody, if you don't learn that verse, that's your verse. That's God speaking through me today.
Oh, maybe,
for you.
Maybe that could have something to do with Mira's card vow. Because that's what you do in card, take a vow, right?
Yeah, you
Maybe
take vows during Kartik.
It could be as simple as learning one verse, Mara. I mean,
do you know that verse,
Mara?
Mara? Mara, do you know that one, 213?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's your verse. That's your verse.
Well, I think we all need to start thinking about what our vow would be. And again, it could be as simple as offering a lamp and singing that song.
You know what? I think we should put our vows up on the board tomorrow. Even if it's...
Sometimes we're told not to do that, right? To keep it personal.
Keep it personal, but how about we just keep it personal within our little Zoom group? Just put it on the board, man.
Okay.
Make it accountable.
Put it on the board.
You know? We need some accountability.
It would be interesting to hear people's ideas of what they're doing, but it should be related to Sweet Baby Krishna. In one way.
It shouldn't be something like, I'm going to sleep on the... I don't know. People do sometimes austerity, physical austerities too.
If that's tied to it, then that's another thing. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to think.
Think about
I'm
it.
going to think. I'm going to think of this. All right. Is that the show? Is that
Oh,
time?
we got takeaways. What about takeaways today?
Mary, you got something good for me?
Probably a
We
lot
do.
Got
of them.
something good for us?
Yeah. Spiritual knowledge recognizes that all life should be respected. Each one of us has to, Each one of us has to fly our own plane.
Booyah.
We've been practicing illusion for lifetimes.
Lifetimes. Dancing that, what was I say? The salsa dance of material existence. I'm dancing with my...
Patience is necessary.
I don't remember that, but yeah, it is.
Transcend the matrix and become an instrument of compassion.
Okay.
We're gripped by our gunas and our conditioning.
Gripped by Gunas. That's a good name for a band. We're gripped by Gunas from Harrisburg.
Gripped by Gunas. Like it.
Gunas.
Material desires bind us further into the illusion.
Material desire. Say that again.
Material desires bind us further into the illusion.
Yes. Nothing about the puppet. Not that the puppet would make it up there to one of the hashtags.
We
got puppets
check out the
in the
Matrix today, Raghunath, so that we can discuss it as we go through the chapter.
What's that? Watch the Matrix?
Check.
All right.
Yeah, get you and Bunky get together in the afternoon or morning and check it out.
Afternoon delight.
Matthew Godden likes the fact that all the bands come from Pennsylvania. Why do all the bands come from Pennsylvania?
I don't know why, but they do.
We were in Dayton, Ohio for a little while, I think, right? Jersey.
Dayton, Ohio. Scranton, Harrisburg.
It's got to sound mundane somehow, right? Not to offend anyone in Pennsylvania.
Gripped by the Gunas.
Yeah, but Scranton is just like the most mundane sounding place I think you come up with, right?
Maybe, perhaps. I think that's why they chose it for The
They
Office.
chose it for The Office. Yeah.
All right, you guys. Thanks for joining us today. What a fun morning we had. Hearing and chanting the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is my only job to do. Hearing and chanting the Bhagavatam. That's our real career. Whatever career you got going on, whether you're a whipper like Mara, whether you're a dealer, a car dealer, or whether you're whippersnapper, whether you're working in the medical industry, our real job is hearing and chanting the Bhagavatam. That is our number one priority. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Wisdom of the Sages Retreat is definitively happening. So I want you to check it out. That is happening. And I think it's on the websites now. I think it might even be up.
Okay,
It's starting on January 12th. Come hang out with Kaustubha. Kaustubha will be there. He'll be wrestling people.
I didn't know that.
And Mara's going to be there. She's going to be making magical foods in the kitchen.
And
She doesn't
Raghunath
know
will
that
be in
either yet.
drag.
And I'll be in drag with Bonky.
They're practicing right now.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Join me and Bobby Marchand for our Restorative Yin and Bhakti retreat the first week. And then me and Madhu the last week for Kirtan Academy. And guess what? If you choose any two, you get $200 off each one. And we're trying to make this reasonably priced. We're trying to make it so everybody can come and hang and like get away to empower ourselves for the rest of the year and take on the Matrix, because the Matrix is coming after you if you don't go after it. That's how we're feeling.